As Stephen said, I work for Diageo. I'm their corporate relations director. I work just up the road in James's Gate. And what I wanted to use was this time to, I suppose, taking the theme of infrastructure. And I'm not an expert in infrastructure. I'm a journalist and public policy person by training and by profession. But I wanted to tell you, and as a journalist, I want to tell you a story as it relates to Diageo and to Guinness in terms of infrastructure, and I suppose how it applies in 4 key areas that are important to us. One as a manufacturer, one as an employer, one as a hospitality business, and then finally as a neighbour. As you know, Diageo it's a global business. We have in excess of 35,000 people around the world in 80 different countries. We're a growing business, but the UK and Ireland is our home. We have roots going back more than 400 years on this island. We are one of the oldest continuous businesses. Diageo was formed from a merger of Grand Met and Guinness in 1997 to 99, and so Guinness is very much part of the DNA of who we are. And if you and most people in this room would understand the values of Guinness, and those values are still incredibly important to the 1,500 of us that work on this island. We're also a city business. We have major operations in, I think when I was looking through the cities, in 5 of the cities that are represented here today, in Dublin and in Belfast. And because I'm based in Dublin, I'm going to use Dublin as the example, but it applies to, in terms of our business, to virtually everywhere that we work on these islands. Interestingly enough, we've been talking about smart cities and smart futures, but for me, as what we are as an agri-foods business in Ireland, the actual manufacture of high-quality food and drink in a city environment is very, very important to us. If you look, it's less than half a mile up to St. James's Gate, and that's where we produce Guinness. It's exported to 150 countries around the world. You only have to go out 3 miles out the road to Clondalkin and you'll get to our Bailey's plant. Again, 95% of what we manufacture in Bailey's is exported. So, for us, we're right in the heart of the city, and we're developing. So when we talk about ourselves as manufacturers, one of the decisions we were going to, back in 2008, we were still going to manufacture Guinness in Dublin, but we were looking at expanding in Leixlip, at creating a new super brewery. I think the media described it at that time. I wasn't working there at the time. But when I arrived to Diageo 2.5 years ago, the recession had happened. They had to put that on hold because global demand had declined. And it forced, and the company had to think differently. And what we came up with, looking at technology, that we could actually have a super brewery on the James's Gate site. So working with Dublin City Council, we managed to, as part of the process, identify that we could build a new brew house. And 18 months ago, we announced that. We got planning very, very quickly for it, and we're currently right in the middle of constructing that. It's I think it's the largest building site on the East Coast. We've had 300 people working there full-time for the last 18 months. It should be open next year, and what it does is it embeds us for another generation at least right in the heart of the city. And I think the guys have do you have a little video? The reason I wanted to show you that, it's very difficult getting vessels of that size into the heart of Dublin, and we did it overnight. And it doesn't happen without a lot of cooperation with the City Council, with the Gardaí, and so on. And, a new brew house is a big piece of infrastructure, and it requires collaboration. And so that would be the first point I would make. And it hasn't happened without very strong collaboration from Dublin City Council in terms of bringing us through the planning process in an open and transparent way. We are now thinking to the future and thinking, like, say, when you're looking as a manufacturer, talking about, raw materials, we know that the city, they can't do much for us on the grain. But water is very, very important, to Stephen's point. So a consistent, high-quality water supply is going to be absolutely vital for food and drink manufacturers in the cities on these islands. And I know Dublin is working very hard on that. I think Eleni was talking about the wastage rate. We've been working hard on reducing our water wastage. We've done that by 20%. We've improved our water efficiency. The new brew house will double that efficiency again, so we're quite excited about that, but the water is going to be incredibly important. And also transport, getting the stuff we export. So things we're looking at, and these are just ideas and we don't know whether they will work, but some things we're thinking, well, we have a light rail system running right by our gate, right down close to the port. And there is interest in the City Council, but again, very early stages. Well, it's not used at night. Could you use that to transport our Guinness down? Could we go back to barges? Barges were an integral part of the Guinness story. And those are the type of ideas that we would like to explore in terms of our manufacturing. We have our own power source, but it's a combined heat and power station. We want to see, can we transform that to make it more renewable? Second area would be our people. We're a very proud tradition in terms of our employees, and myself as an employee, and a very strong history in terms of that in Guinness. We also this year won the Best Place to Work in Ireland. And it's important, and there's a big business reason, and it's been mentioned by very many people, including Steve earlier, that talent and attracting talent is hugely important for successful businesses. And the environment in which you live is critical to that. Let me give you my own personal story. Like I love the city. It's very, very important. I came here on a bike, and the infrastructure of a city in terms of making it a very, very livable, breathing city is hugely important. And cities the size of Dublin, size of Glasgow, the size of Edinburgh, they're very, very manageable. My colleagues who have lived abroad or who are here for 3-4 years talk about that. Talk about the ability to come in, go home, and then come back in for a work-related dinner. That's incredibly important. So we have, I suppose, nearly an environmental advantage in terms of some of the cities that we're talking about, in terms of the neatness. Now, that said, it took me an hour to get across to Balls Bridge last night because of the traffic, and so that's one of the things as policymakers we would hope, that you would engage on. The third area is we're a hospitality business. The nighttime economy is incredibly important to us. People getting in and out of the city in a safe way, enjoying themselves safely and responsibly is incredibly important to us. Event-based tourism is incredibly important to us as well. We have the Guinness Storehouse. We will have 1.2 million visitors come there this year. It's the biggest paid tourism attraction in the city. We're spending 10 million euro on developing and improving that. So working with the City Council and with other partners on making sure that Dublin is a vibrant place to enjoy yourself in is absolutely critically important to us. The other thing that I suppose, and there are programs also, when you talked about the 1.2 million people, half of them walk. So half of them walk there. So what we talk about, or what some policymakers talk about, the public realm is really important in that instance. And there are ideas like the Dub Line, which is, essentially the environment as you walk from Trinity College right through to Kilmainham, and that's a project that excites us. It's not very, very high cost, but it can transform the city. Finally, talk about ourselves as a neighbour. Again, when you look at the history that we have really big shoes to fill. If you look at Stephen's Green, if you look at the Ivy Gardens, if you look at a lot of the public housing around, that was all done by the Guinness family. And for us, being a good neighbour is very, very important, because we realise in Guinness we have a 254-year history in this city. We want to be here for another 254 years. So we understand that requires an absolute strong and sustainable community, and being a good neighbour is absolutely important to that. I think Brendan Behan was once he was in the pub and somebody was talking about how good Guinness had been to Dublin. And he goes, yeah, well, Dublin has been very good to Guinness, and we understand and appreciate that. So we've been looking around at our neighbours. We have a lot of what you call CSR projects. I don't particularly like that name, but the Arthur Guinness Fund would be one of them. And for us, it's not about building things anymore. It's not about redeveloping a park. It's about enabling other people to do that. And say things such as Fundit.ie, that is providing microfinancing to the artistic community in Dublin and around the country. Those are the type of projects that we want to support. There is an area that we're looking at the moment. We did an audit of the Dublin 8 area, and when you do an audit of the Dublin 8 area, and to what Minister Hayes was talking about, you find a lot of deprivation. What we're finding in Dublin 8 now is that you have some families, and it is the third generation of persistent unemployment. So you have to go back 4 generations to find a member of that family who has been involved in, who's had a full-time job. So currently we're looking at that. We're looking at programs that may help, that we may be able to get involved in terms of how we can contribute back to the economy in a meaningful way and in a sustainable way that makes a positive and lasting difference. So those are the ideas. We don't have, I suppose, there are more questions that we're throwing out than answers. So this conference is a very, very good opportunity for us to hear what people are thinking in those kind of 4 broad areas. So I think I've gone over, so apologies for that.